This is, human resources is all about change. Like every organization is somewhere that wants to get somewhere else. Wherever you are, in whatever industry, whatever phase of growth, wherever you are in the evolution of your company, now's the time. So take advantage of that, play offense, and help create the new normal, which my friend says is the new normal is never normal, which I kind of believe in, but it's kind of scary when you say it that way. So go out there and create your new, better normal.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the PeopleHum interview series. I'm Aishwarya Jain from the PeopleHum team. PeopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM, that's specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the PeopleHum blog and channel that receives more than 400,000 visitors a year, and we also publish several interviews with well-known names globally every month. We have with us today Steve Cadigan, talent hacker and advisor at Cadigan Talent Ventures. He is a highly sought-after talent advisor to leaders and organizations across the globe. He is regularly retained by Silicon Valley's top VCs for his talent expertise. He's also been a regular guest on Bloomberg West and CNBC. Prior to launching his own firm, Steve worked as an HR executive for over 25 years at a wide range of top-tier companies, including S3, Cisco Systems, Electronic Arts, and capped by serving as the first CHRO for LinkedIn from 2009 through 2012. His culture work at LinkedIn led Stanford to build a case study for their business school. Today, Steve serves on the board of directors to 3 companies and sits on the advisory board of several others. With that, I'd like to welcome you again, Steve. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very fortunate to have you with us today.
It's really great to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Sure, it's our pleasure. So, Steve, I just want to kind of understand a little bit about you and for our viewers to kind of understand what is it that you do. So we'll start with that. And you've been, up and running for 8 years now with your talent venture. And it definitely does sound very interesting. So could you just give us a little bit of background on it?
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, I've had a long career in the world of human resources, and I absolutely love that profession. There's no greater art form to me than the art of trying to get individuals and teams and organizations to become great and to exceed expectations and to do something greater together. So I love that art form. And as a practitioner in the world of human resources, as an operator in companies, I stopped doing that around 9 years ago and formed my own business to really help companies build what I call compelling talent solutions. I was really underwhelmed and disappointed in most organizations that I've been a part of with how organizations and leaders approach the people strategies. And I think that we can be a lot more creative. I think we can get a lot more done than we can. I think we have practices and historical approaches to talent which are fundamentally broken and wrong. And so I'm trying to help people see there's a new way of leading, there's a new way of inspiring and realizing greatness in organizations. And so that's what I try to do. I try to coach leaders and in companies from a startup with one founder to multinational 1,000-person organizations. I'll help an individual entrepreneur as well as work with the BBC or the Royal Bank of Scotland. Recently, I've been working with Salesforce in Europe, very big organizations. So I love doing that. And a lot of my expertise and my passion revolves around the dimensions of culture, because that is the platform that can unlock all kinds of greatness, or it could block all kinds of greatness. And so I try to help people really understand, what does it take to really build something amazing? And I feel like my experience working in 6 different industries, living in 3 different geographies, I've lived most of my life in the US, but I also spent 5 years of my childhood in South Africa. I spent 2 years in Singapore, running human resources for all of Asia Pacific for Cisco. And I spent 4 years in Canada, Western Canada. And so I feel like I bring a really good global point of view as a human and also as a professional to try to really help organizations that are spread around the world. So that's what I do. When I'm not doing that, I have uh, 3 children who I shuttle all around the world. See, it seems like all around the world pre-coronavirus to sporting events and activities. And I love coaching some of their sports as well. But that's really, professionally, that's pretty much what I'm up to these days.
That's really amazing, Steve. And it's amazing how you've had such a wonderful journey, such a global life, I'd say. And, since you also kind of are really passionate about talent and getting in the right kind of talent for companies, I think there's been a talent war for a long, long time. And what we see also is that a lot of startups, right, new age startups, they want to sort of imitate the ones that are established. Like, I want the Google culture. I want talent, how Google gets talent, that sort of thing. But somewhere down the line, they definitely do fail. So, what's your take on that? Do you think that's a good strategy? How do you go about creating talent strategy?
Well, that's a great question. It's a great observation. And I observed the same thing, that a lot of people look to the sexy brands and the highly successful technology companies for inspiration. And I wrote a whole article on this, so I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think, for those of the people in the audience who are thinking about, I want to build a special company with a special culture and realize something great. I think it is good to look to some organizations that have realized that. But be very careful when you do benchmarking, because you're not Google, you're not Apple, you're not Facebook. You are who you are. You don't have the same leaders. You're not in the same industry. You're not you're not going to create the same culture in the same way, because you're not doing the business with the people that they're doing it with. I think the some really good messages from some of the companies that you mentioned, that I mentioned, are that these companies are successful because they built cultures of change. They built an ability to adapt and to learn quickly and to move. And a lot of these companies, we could add to the list, like Slack, or like Dropbox, or Box, or Airbnb, or even like an Uber. They have been able to react really quickly during coronavirus and COVID-19 because they build cultures that can adapt. COVID-19 has not scared these companies. COVID-19 is just another day in the office, because they're used to crazy. And so that's one of the big lessons I think people should learn from these companies, that build it in your way. And if you really care, if you really believe that culture can drive great results, which I do, then take that lesson. But don't take everything that they do as how you should do it, because it won't work for you. I mean, you've got to build it in your way, and take some risks. And those cultures that I've just mentioned, none of them are perfect. They're flaws. Google's gotten into a lot of trouble, and a lot of employees have been very upset around, oh, it's an open culture, share your ideas. Oh, wait, you're fired for expressing your ideas. So it's not perfect, and I don't know if perfect is achievable, but something that inspires people to do their best work is worth going for. So, so I think that's a good lesson to take. Now, I led recruiting at LinkedIn and the talent function for almost 4 years, when it was an absolute battle. And when you say talent, or you say talent to me, I think software engineer. Now, most people, when you say employee, think something different. I think a software engineer, because it's like an endangered species. It's hard to get. But the war for talent in Silicon Valley, when I was building LinkedIn, was so extreme, it forced us to have to be creative. Now, that's good, I think, for organizations to learn. If like, oh, we're going to hire a search firm to hire for us, I think that's the wrong solution. The most important solution, especially if you're growing technical teams, is for you to be great at recruiting yourself. That's the most important muscle, because it requires you to answer a question. Why does anyone want to work here? What do we have that's unique? And so let me tell you what most entrepreneurs say. They say, oh, you should work here because we are great people. We have a good culture. We have a great product. We're going to make a lot of money, and we have good advisors. And when I hear that, I go, that's great. And that's what everyone else says. So what's different about you? Like, what is really unique? Are you solving a problem for the world that matters? Are you changing something in the world that needs to be changed? And when I was at LinkedIn, when we answered that question, why does anyone want to work for you? It helped unlock an understanding that we're solving a problem of helping people find their dream jobs that's meaningful. And no one's ever solved that before. And sure, you can go to Google and get paid more, and you can go to Apple and paid more, and you could go to Facebook and help kids not do their homework and develop short attention span capability, or you can come here and help people find their dream job. I don't know. What do you want to do? And so that's my advice, I think, to people when they're looking at, wow, it's really hard to hire people. Okay, well, why don't you start with why should anyone work for you? And have a really good answer and understanding about that, because you will not hire at scale and you will not hire quality people until you can answer that question really well, better than all the choices that other people have. And here's another reason why we have a war for talent today. We have a war for talent, especially among knowledge and technical workers, because they have more choice than ever before. That's a beautiful thing. If you're a technical worker, and my three boys all love science, I'm like, great, you're going to take care of my retirement, get good jobs in technology, because you have more power as technical talent than ever before because you have more choice and you can see what jobs are open, what companies are paying, what the culture is like, what the leadership style is like. And so that's putting more pressure on companies, because if things are not working well in your company, your employees or your ex-employees are telling everyone about it. So I think it's a good forcing function to make leadership better, because if you're not, you're going to be discovered. You can't hide that anymore today. And so anyway, I could go on and on, Ash, on this topic, but it's a great question. And I think, the 2 points I want to hammer home is be careful when you benchmark. You are not those companies. Take some lessons, macro lessons, change culture, innovation. What can we do to structure how work gets done here in a way that's going to inspire people to do their best? And take some lessons from, maybe a LinkedIn or a Google or a Salesforce or an Apple that you like, but it's not everything that they did will work for you. So just be careful about that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Steve. I think also since the world is now all on social media, and then you have a lot of transparency, you've got Glassdoor, and that kind of changes the whole game, because you just, as a company, you have to deliver value so that I think candidates that are looking at your company, they also see the value, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's as I said, that's a very good forcing function that, employees are saying that's great. In some respects, early in my career, I'm so grateful that Glassdoor didn't exist, because I've worked in companies where the employees were really unhappy. And if they had a voice back then to tell the world, we would have not been able to hire very many people. So, it's a new dynamic. And, we're still coming to terms with, what does that mean? That employees have a voice. Like this device right here turns your employees into your marketing department. It turns your employees into your employer brand. And so what I like to ask companies is, what are you doing with your employees to get them to use this to speak and tell the world how great it is? That's better than any advertising campaign you can do, is the authentic experiences, creating great marketing collateral for you to be able to hire great people, right? And as you know, you've been in this industry for a while. Some of the the highest proportion of usually successful hires in an organization come from referrals, come from your own people who deliver a good experience. They're going to deliver more great people to you, right? And want to stay and deliver really good things.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me also play the devil's advocate here, right? So, um,
Please.
sometimes your recruiters are your frontline people. And what happens is that a lot of companies, um, they are not able to translate the core values of the company from the core to these frontline people. So sometimes recruiters have no idea who they're recruiting for. They don't know what the company stands for. So, do you think that also is a prevalent issue, and how can you solve that?
Well, that's a fail if that's happening. That shame on that company for hiring recruiters that don't know what they're doing, for not training the recruiters, for not being clear. Let me share a story with you. We didn't have a problem to the extent that you're talking about at LinkedIn, but we had so many recruiters. I think I had 75 recruiters working for me at one point. And I needed more, by the way. But what we were concerned about was, is everyone telling the same story? Does everyone understand this business? is everyone closing candidates with the same value proposition? And so we tested them and we found out, no, they're not. So we created a boot camp, a 2-week boot camp with all the recruiters over a period of 2 weeks, making sure we're investing in them. Because if they are the front line, they're the one that's creating, they need to create great candidate experiences, And so if you have recruiters that are not clear on the story, are not really certain what they're recruiting for, that's a leadership deficiency. It's not a recruiting deficiency. That's a leadership choice that they have decided we're not going to put A players in recruiting. We're going to put C players, and we're going to invest C time in there. We're not going to invest A time. So I'm not willing to accept that if I hear that for recruiters. And that's why I said earlier, don't outsource your recruiting. You need to get great at that if you want to hire great people. And it's all about your culture. When we were growing at LinkedIn, doubling the size every year, most of my hiring managers were spending time recruiting, not doing their jobs. Okay. And so I would say, wait a second, that is their job to recruit. They're like, well, I got a day job. Yes. So what would happen was, and this is one of the keys to why I think a lot of these younger companies are so successful. When you have a hyper growth environment, a lot of your leadership team is recruiting, not doing their marketing, development, product, jobs. They're hiring and closing candidates. So what happens? The people below them have to step up and get more responsibility. And they're excited by that. Wow, I'm now being sort of the interim, acting manager, and they're doing a lot more. And it's really aspirational and it's a great learning. So you're creating a learning culture while you're growing, which is really, really powerful. And that's, one of the messages I want to leave with people here. If you really want to build something special, you cannot see recruiting as a side activity. It's core to who you are and what you must become if you want to realize your destiny, because realizing your destiny means you have a lot of people. And so, I don't want to have a huge organization any more than the next person, but at some point, if you want to change a lot of lives and you want to make a difference in the world, you need a lot of people. So you got to be really good at that. And really good at that. And if you just let your recruiters recruit, that's a fail. Hiring managers need to invest more time recruiting than the recruiters do. Because guess what? The candidates are not working for the recruiter. They're working for you, the hiring manager, right? So, and I always tell this, to my colleagues in HR, when you're looking to join a new company, first ask the leadership team, who's responsible for recruiting here? Recruiting or the hiring manager? Then you'll get a sense of how they think about it. And if they say, oh, recruiting is, then say, why? We're not hiring people to work for recruiting, right? We're hiring people to work for the hiring manager. Why wouldn't the hiring manager own that and get help from the recruiter? But they've got to drive that, right? Really important.
Absolutely. I think there is a problem of accountability, of somebody taking ownership, and it's also a problem of, as you said, right? The perspective is that recruitment is a side activity, and I think that really, really is a big issue in a lot of companies. And
I
also,
agree.
I also kind of wanted to ask you, Steve, when it comes to, recruitment, do you think, technology is kind of coming up the curve on that? Is it really helping, and enabling the recruitment process?
I'm encouraged, honestly, because I'm seeing a lot of um, new entrants and new organizations and new people trying to solve the HR technology stack. And as I jokingly say, I love my HR technology, said nobody ever. And unfortunately, I'm sitting here having been in the HR operating role for 35 years of my life. I've never been in a company where the people systems were the best systems in the company. And it doesn't make any sense to me. If people are creating value and unlocking value from your employees is the most important thing any organization should be doing, why are the people systems the poorest performing, least invested, an afterthought purchase? And why are we investing more money in counting dollars and products? Why are the accounting systems more important? Well, obviously the accounting system is important because if you screw that up, you're going to go to jail, okay? Or your company's going to fail. I get it. But if you don't have people delivering, you don't have any money to count. So, there is some hope, especially in areas of talent assessment and, qualifying the capabilities of people. Talent is such a subjective thing in some areas. Like, let's take one that's pretty easy to assess: sales. Did you sell or didn't you sell? Pretty easy, right? Accounting. Did you close the books? Did you not close the books? Did you make a mistake? Did you not make a mistake? Okay. So how do you assess coaching in human resources? Is there a way to effectively assess that in an interview that you can assess, like a programmer? Do you know how to program in Python or not? And how well can you program there in other languages? I can get a sense for that, but I can't measure how good you are at recruiting to the same degree, right? So we're getting closer. One of the interesting things, and this is going to take us a little bit on a tangent, but it's one of my favorite tangents, which is we are recruiting in a highly uncertain world right now. Our ability to forecast what skills we need in our companies or what skills we need as professionals is very limited. We don't have a long tail sight to what skills we really need to build. And that's very scary for universities, for companies, for individuals. Like, what skills do I need so I'm going to have a great career? Well, I can't tell you that, because whatever skills you're learning today, I know they're going to need to be different in 5 years. Look at human resources, talent analytics, brand ambassadors. Those didn't even exist 10 years ago. And now they're like the hottest things in sliced bread. So when I think about this and recruiting and the systems, to answer your question, what I find really interesting is, in a world that's changing, I think what we're going to see in the world of recruiting that's going to be different is, I'm going to recruit you not based on what you know. I'm going to recruit you based on what you can learn and what you can know. And that's more valuable to me, because my company's going to need to learn and pivot. Look at coronavirus. Every company in the world is having to pivot today in every way, right? This house that I'm speaking to you from in the last 9 months became a school because my kids are here, and it became my business too. Well, I usually work from home anyway, but it's different because I'm having to share bandwidth now with my kids who are doing, Zoom classes. But this is a really fundamental shift that's going to need to work its way into the future systems and assessment tools, and also the world of recruiting, which is what someone can learn and how fast their learning velocity is almost more important than what they know, because we need people that can adapt and who are agile. And I think we're going to start to see, and I'm working with a few organizations right now that are working on this, that are delivering some really interesting things. So let me give you a couple of systems that technologies I'm really excited by in the future work. One is a company here in the Bay Area called Skillprint. So do you like to play games, Ash? Are you like a Candy Crush addict, or do you like, Clash of Clans, or, do you like to play Boggle? All right. So what Skillprint has done is said, what gaming developers are all about is understanding human behavior. The more I understand how you behave, the more I can build a game that you're going to play longer. Well, a couple of game developers got together and said, we believe that we can reveal career insights based on how you play a game. You tend to be a real risk taker. You tend to be someone who studies something a long time before you make a move in a game. That could make you predisposed to be really good for this kind of a career path. And if that's what you want to do, then what Skillprint can do is say, looking at your LinkedIn profile or your background, you probably need to take these classes, and here we're going to help you. So that's really interesting how technology, I think, is going to help careers and organizations. Another company in Switzerland called PhD has created the ability for every organization to map an individual's skills to every job in the company. Now, most of the listeners here, and maybe yourself, Ash, is asking, like, wait, why doesn't that exist already? Why doesn't every company know how qualified everyone is in that company for every job in the company? And think about how many people have left a company because they thought there was nothing else they could do, or they weren't qualified, or they weren't aware of another opportunity. Well, what PhD is building is the capability. It's called PhD Talent Accelerator. They've built a capability for every employee to see in visual form, oh, I'm 40% qualified for that job, or a pie that says, oh, I'm 60%. And then so it's orange, but if you're over 70%, now you're green. And guess what? Those jobs are open. Or if you're 40% qualified for a job and you really want to move into that job in the future, well, here's the 20 classes you can take, or here's the 3 other jobs that we can move you into in your future to get you more prepared for that. And that, I think, is very powerful, because I believe what candidates, and again, this gets back to this theme of recruiting, I believe what candidates want today is not job security. I think candidates want knowledge security, because knowledge security gives you job security. That's more valuable. What's more valuable? Staying in a company a long time, or having so many good skills? Doesn't matter what company you're in. You're going to be fine. And so companies are going to keep people. This is really hard for some people to hear, but companies are going to keep people longer the more able they are to let them grow and find another job somewhere else. And that's a recruiting slogan of the future, by the way. Come join my company because I'm going to help you leave it. Not literally, but I'm going to make you more qualified. I'm going to equip you with skills, and I'm going to design work in a way that's going to blow your mind with how capable you're going to be for the future. And so, on the systems front, I'm encouraged. I think, we're moving to more of an apps universe than a central ERP. I think, people want a second source to the major players, the Oracle, SAP, and Workdays of the world, that are really expensive and don't, what it costs to change a feature is like thousands of dollars when it's like 5 minutes of a programmer's time to change something. It's making people frustrated. That creates a vacuum of opportunity for people to do new things, right?
Wow, that was really, really insightful, Steve. I mean, I haven't heard this, and I kind of don't even have an insight on the new future tech, but I think this really helps. It helps to kind of envision a much more, I'd say, colorful HR world rather than just looking at the blacks and the whites. There's a lot of gray zone there, and I think we still haven't addressed a lot of that gray yet. But I think we kind of are trying to bridge the gap with what you're saying. So
Yeah, and Ash, let me add to that right now, because I think this is really, like, we could get really philosophical right now. Um, you know, Here there's a term called cognitive dissonance, which is two concepts that live together but are highly unlike each other. So historically, what have we tried to do in human resources? We have tried to control, build to control an organization, allow an organization to control a predictable outcome. Okay, that's been the why is human resource here? So that we can sort of manage consistency, and so we can realize something together. Well, the future is not consistent. The future is everything disrupted and different. And so we've got human resources like, well, what do we do? Well, we have to create the organization's ability to do different things quickly and new things, not to be consistent. We have to be consistently inconsistent, if that makes sense. And so we're really at this and technology's forcing this on us, right? And we have employees now that are, I'm speaking at a conference in a couple hours today around the conflict between humanity and technology. And one of the points I'm going to make in the conference is, this is the biggest threat to organizations today, this mobile device. Why? Because people are spending more time looking at that than they are at another human being. And if I want to help an organization achieve something, I want to build trust. Are you building trust with someone by looking at a device and connecting with them that way, or looking at them eyeball to eyeball? And we're all looking at Black Mirror today thanks to the pandemic. But I really think, like, are organizations having a strategy to help their people deal with technology? We have the most anxious, depressed, fear of missing out, fear of being behind workforce in history, to the point that the Guardian and the Atlantic have declared that we have something called the anxiety economy. And we have the first unicorn of the anxiety economy, which is an app called Calm, which is about meditation. Think about that. We have the first billion-dollar business making money because we're all anxious, freaked out, and stressed out and feeling behind. Thank you, technology, for that. So, it's an interesting reality, but that's another when you talk about how exciting the frontier is for human resources, we've got to help protect our people from harming themselves with technology. And when do they turn off? Because technology, I loved working before the internet, working before cell phones, because when I left the office, I'm done. It doesn't follow me. Now it's on me all the time. It's right here on my watch. And so we are still at this new frontier where our workers are burning out. Our workers are, tired, and we have to have intentional strategies relative to their relationship with the technology in our company. And I don't know a single company yet that's working on that or thinking about that. So that's part of my mission right now. It's sort of wake up, people. There's an edge here. There's a concern that people should have, and it's really it's worth our attention. This is a worthy area for us to help people. And you throw on coronavirus and single parents or parents of really young children that can't self-manage schooling at home. Now you got a problem, because we didn't have to worry about what was happening at home when people are in the office. But now when the office is the home, we got to help people even more carve out space and not feel all that pressure. Anyway, I'm sorry. I can take you on so many tangents, it'll make your head spin. So you got to manage me, Ash. Come on, keep me focused.
No, but I love this, Steve. It's just so, I'd say it's not structured, and I love this unstructured conversation because
Great.
I really kind of see the value in what you're saying, with so many things, right? I can literally resonate because it's like there's no separation between your work life and personal life. It's everything's just kind of intermingled. The lines are blurred, and sometimes it gets too much. So I think HR as HRs, it's important to just kind of create some boundaries at times, and that kind of also brings me to my next question that I wanted to ask you, Steve. It's
Mhm.
shifting gears a little bit here. So you've been a CHRO for some time, and um, I think now CHRO's roles are going to be very diverse. They're going to be much more than what they used to be. What do you think is going to be the primary job of the CHRO in a company? And do you think that it's going to be much more than what it already is? And what is like the future of the CHRO?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine last week, and he works for a major search firm that everyone would know if I mention the search firm, and he does placement of CHROs around the world, and he's one of the best. And he used to be head of recruiting for a big technology company before. So he's a really good guy and been a friend of mine for years. And I was asking him, so what are you seeing what companies are looking for in CHROs? And he said, Steve, it's really interesting. Coronavirus has revealed a lot of organization leaders are not impressed or not happy with the quality of their CHRO, that coronavirus has revealed all kinds of new human resource challenges, and some heads of human resources have not been able to step up and help manage the fact that culture is now different, and how we need to communicate is different, and how we organize, and how we recruit, and how we onboard, and how we thrive, and how we get employee engagement. It's all different now. So some people are like can't handle that change, and so we're seeing an elevation by the business in the respect and the need to have high quality in their position. Getting back to our earlier point around, hey, a lot of frontline recruiters don't really know what's going on. And I'm like, yeah, that's not a recruiting problem. That's a leadership problem. We've had a few stories here, and Uber is a great example, where they found out there's a real toxic culture here. A lot of employees said, well, I went to HR, I told them my manager's treating me unfairly or harassing me or doing inappropriate things, and HR didn't do anything. That HR is horrible. And my response was, no, HR is doing what management hired them to do, which is nothing, because management didn't care to hire really good HR people. They wanted people to do what they are told to do, not counter and say, hey, rules are being broken here. This isn't right. So, when I think about the evolution of the function, I'm excited because, yes, I think there's a growing recognition. Now, let me also step back and tell you that the best human resource success I've realized was not because I was really smart or I had a good HR team, is because my leadership team had great human resource sensibility. And that's what everyone, if you're out there, if you're a human resource leader and you're thinking about making your next move, I think that's the ideal scenario, is that you're not having to sell why the HR agenda is important. You're being challenged by them, like, hey, do something more creative. That's what you want, like pushing the HR function to do more and to do better, rather than, what's the new policy for, bereavement or leave or time out. Like, come on. Like, what we should be focused on is how do we realize something great together, and that's sort of the umbrella. right? Not how do we make sure that we're compliant and the files are appropriate and we're not doing any privacy violate. Like, yes, that's important. But here's the problem that I see. And I've counseled, I had a meeting yesterday with another firm on this topic. I've counseled many companies hiring their first head of HR. And you know what? They're all scared. They're all scared because they know more what they don't want from human resources than what they do want from human resources. They've never seen it really work great. And that's a shame. And I was at Airbnb years ago. They were hiring their first head of human resources, and I just retired from LinkedIn, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. And so Belinda Johnson, who's still there as the COO, through a friend of a friend, said, "Hey, would you come and get a cup of coffee with me? Just help me think through what should I be looking for, and are we thinking about the right things?" And so she said the phrase which makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck whenever I hear it. She said, "We want an HR person who's not an HR person." I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, well, what does that mean? What that means is you've never seen an HR person acting in the way that you think they should act. So you don't really know what it looks like. And I said, well, let me step back and let's reframe the question. I said, because I know some great HR people who are HR people, but I'm not going to be offended by what you just said. I think what you're saying is you haven't really seen it work at scale to the point where it's adding the value you think it could do. So what's important to you, Belinda? She said, well, culture. We want someone who's going to be the culture champion. And I said, really? You want a culture champion who's an HR? Yeah. And we're going to hire someone from like McKinsey or Bain or Boston, like a really top-notch consultant who's not an HR person. And I said, okay, well, I have a different point of view on that. I have a point of view. If you hire someone from McKinsey or Bain or one of those companies to be your culture champion, they're going to want to be the superstar. They're going to prove that you made a good hire. When I believe great HR leaders make other leaders great culture leaders. They don't become the culture leader themselves. They are the driver, they're the enabler. They're not the culture. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not just like I don't believe, and this could be somewhat controversial, I don't believe you solve diversity and inclusion by hiring head of diversity. I actually think that's a failed approach. I think you hold all your leaders accountable for being more attuned and more aware and more of an owner of driving a more diverse and inclusive culture. That's how you do it. Because the minute you hire someone, they're responsible for all the diversity stuff, oh, look, they are such a diverse person themselves. Aren't we a great company? No, that's failure, I think. Okay. So again, maybe somewhat controversial, but where I see it, evolving. And again, this is all back to, you asked me, how do I see the role evolving? And I think, this, this notion of, the behind the scenes, like great HR sometimes is invisible. Some of my best successes, I can never run through the halls and say, I kept the CEO from making a really bad decision today. Isn't that great? I can't do that. You know, I just coached someone who wanted to quit because they hate their boss. I kept them here. I can't run through the halls and say that, but that's invisibly powerful what I'm doing, behind the scenes. So I think, it's a really weird role too, the CHRO, because you've got this coaching, this nurturing dimension, but you also have this, no, you can't do that. You're not going to promote, Jim, because Susan's better than Jim. And you have three other women who are more qualified than him. If you promote him, you're going to have a mutiny on your hands. And so when you tell that to a manager, no, you're not going to do that, it doesn't make them want to like you more. It makes them want to go and bag on you on Glassdoor or say HR is horrible, when what you're doing is the right thing. You're saying that's a bad decision for the company and I don't support it, right? And so you got to play those dual roles, and it doesn't engender the kind of love that we all want to have in human resources. Sometimes you got to have a bit of a thick skin. That's why my hair is a little bit gray. It didn't used to be gray before I did HR, but I think it's a really fascinating profession. I love it, honestly. I love HR because every day is different. But anyway, that's kind of how I see it evolving.
Yeah, I can totally see your passion coming out, Steve, and you said so many unsaid things, right? I mean, it's been incredible the way you kind of put it, because that's really the brutal truth. And I also feel like a lot of organizations just get HR just to blame somebody, have somebody to blame. Hey, that's the HR's fault. And I think
That's
that
right.
perspective completely needs to change. And I think this will definitely help a lot of um, viewers, leaders, business owners kind of gauge the difference between really looking at HR in the right way and just kind of
Mhm.
using it as support function. I think it's
Yeah,
very
and again, it's a weird profession. Like I said, there's no accreditation. There's very few schools that just really focus on this. It's not like in finance you have the CPA exam or you have to take regular accreditation. There's a human resource certification in some parts of the world. I know Canada has one, the U.S. has one, Society for Human Resource Management. But it's also a weird profession, honestly, Ash, because it's so highly relationship dependent. If you do not have good chemistry with your CEO, with her or with the leadership team, you're not gonna you're not gonna be as effective. And it's I put it like this: there's two things that make a human resource leader in any level effective. That's judgment and credibility. And you get that by being trusted. Now, if you don't have good judgment, you will have no credibility. And if you don't have credibility, no one cares about your judgment. So I look at when I'm new to an organization, the best way for you to build trust and credibility and show your judgment is a problem comes up and someone brings a problem to you and they see how you handle it. For example, let me give you an example. My first week at LinkedIn, this was a really, really great story. So I had seen one of the departments, all the employees came to me and said, "Oh, the manager is horrible, blah, really concerned." So I went to the CEO and said, "Hey, I'm new here at LinkedIn. Is there a problem over here? Because some of the employees are concerned and they're like disproportionately complaining to me. I just want to know, like, do you know something that I should know?" And he says, "Really? There's a problem there?" I said, "I think so because everyone's complaining to me." So uh, later that day, the head of that department comes running into my office and says, "I heard you were going to the CFO or CEO complaining about me." I went, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. I wasn't complaining about you. I was expressing to him that your employees are coming to me." And I got really upset at the CEO. I said, "Hey, you can't go and betray my confidence to you. I was sharing something to you in comment. I didn't say it's in confidence, but you can't worry about it. Now I've got a broken relationship with someone on your team because they think I ratted them out to you. And that's not cool." So I had to recalibrate my relationship with the CEO. I had to fix my relationship with that leader and say, "No, no, no, I don't have an issue, but you have an issue. And how can I help you with that? Not like you're in trouble, but you're going to be in trouble if your people leave." You see? So that was a moment of truth. Like they were calling me out, like, "Hey, I think you got a bad motivation here." And again, that's the tricky dimension that human resources. And I could tell story after story. And I should probably start a university on this because I feel like I've made a lot of mistakes and I've learned from them, but I've also seen a lot happen that's tripped up human resource people in the past. It's an incredible function.
Yes, yes, absolutely, Steve. I think we've covered so many gray areas and kind of uncovered the hidden truths and spoken about things between the lines. I also do think that HR is very, very complex as a function, which I think most CEOs and CFOs would just easily overlook. They just don't want to,
Mhm.
look at that function. It's sort of like invisible to them. But I think that through your learnings and through whatever we've discussed, at least there would be somebody who would take this into consideration and maybe change. So I think that's incredibly amazing. I loved our conversation, Steve. Thank you so much for spending time. Is there anything else, any kind of sound bites that you'd like to pass on to our viewers?
Absolutely. I have a book on the future of work that really, a lot of what we talked about today is in there. It's not a human resource book. It's a book about the future of careers, the future of job, the future of work, and what organizations can do to be more creative. So it does include some talent strategies that I think would really help in this post COVID world that we're heading into. And I also started a TikTok channel recently under my name, Steve Cadigan. So I encourage you, please go there, check it out. I want to be the most followed TikTok HR leader ever. And I already have 13,000 followers. And I'd love to have more. So if you're listening to this, please find me on TikTok. I have a bunch of the TikToks on there, which would be, I think, interesting to anyone, which is how to negotiate for more money with your boss, how to have that hard conversation. Um, Lots of future work ideas and thoughts, some of which we talked about today. But the nice thing about TikTok, it's just like a few seconds and boom, boom. So please follow me there. And, I guess lastly, I'd just like to say, you know, coronavirus has given those of us in the world of talent the ultimate opportunity to change things. Everything has changed in our lives. And if you're in an organization or you're in a place in your career or you're in a company and you want to change something, now is the best time to do it because everyone's ready for things to be different because it's been forced on us. It's the greatest change moment that we ever have seen or probably hopefully will see in our lifetimes. So take advantage of that, and this is, human resources is all about change. Like every organization is somewhere that wants to get somewhere else, wherever you are, in whatever industry, whatever phase of growth, wherever you are in the evolution of your company, now's the time. So take advantage of that, play offense, and help create the new normal, which my friend says is the new normal is never normal, which I kind of believe in, but it's kind of scary when you say it that way. So go out there and create your new better normal. And if I can help you, find me on LinkedIn, follow me on TikTok, and I'd love to keep the conversation. Ash, thank you so much again for having me. And if when my book comes out, would you please invite me back so I can talk more about it and help get some of the concepts of my book out there in the world? I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Steve. I've had so much fun talking to you. Thank you so much for those amazing insights. I think a lot of them will actually really gain a lot of value from our conversation. So, thank you so much.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you so much.